Good afternoon. Peel police were investigating after 2 tow trucks were set on fire overnight.
It happened in Brampton. Investigators say the fires were deliberately set. The incidents caught on camera. CTV's Janice Golding joins us live from the scene with the very latest. Janice, what do investigators know?
Hi, Nathan. Well, if you take a look behind us here, you'll see that there are a number of vehicles that are badly damaged, and that's exactly what investigators are looking into after it appears another tow truck incident where arsonists have targeted these vehicles. Now, surveillance video appears to show a man light something in his hands on fire before he tosses it toward a red heavy tow truck. Flames immediately engulf the tires of that truck and quickly spread to surrounding vehicles, including another heavy tow truck. Emergency crews say they were called to an industrial area near Rutherford and Orenda at 3:15 a.m. And when they arrived, officers found 4 vehicles on fire, 2 sedans as well as 2 trucks. Our crew spoke to one of the truck's owners this morning, and he speculated about the cause, including disputes between rival tow truck companies, while reflecting on the damage to his own vehicle.
Like box is totally damaged. I can see it's, but when I will get my truck back, then I will bring it to my mechanic. He will let me know, but I can see the box is totally damaged, so minimum $30,000-$40,000. And even like for 3-4 weeks, I'm out of my job. I have only 1 truck.
Now, police believe 2 people are responsible for this blaze, saying both were seen pouring gasoline in and around the heavy tow trucks. Now, just over a week ago, there was another major fire involving several tow trucks at an auto yard along this same stretch of Rutherford Road. Here's what police have to say about the crimes and a possible connection.
Obviously, given the fact that it is tow trucks that were targeted, the timing and the location makes our investigators look at comparisons between the 2. But at this time, we don't have any evidence to substantiate that both investigations are related. However, our investigators will actively be looking to see if there is some connection.
Well, police say it's not certain at this point whether the same people are responsible for both of these fires. They say they do appear to be intentionally set. The investigations continue. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Nathan.
Thank you, Janice. Politicians from all levels are gathering in Peel Region today for a summit on the growing rise in extortion attempts.
These incidents targeting both individuals and businesses. CTV's John Musselman is at today's meeting and joins us live with all the details. John.
Well, Michelle, we're at the Canadian Convention Centre in Brampton. This is an in-camera meeting that's happening as we speak. And as you mentioned, we've got politicians at the federal, provincial, and municipal level. We'll show you some video now. They gathered here this morning at around 9 o'clock. Again, politicians as well as representatives from local police departments, including Peel Region. And the reason they are here is because of these extortion cases, a series of these cases that have been plaguing both Peel Region and parts of Caledon. The most recent we reported on last week when a home in Brampton had gunshots fired into the home, the garage. We spoke to the owner, who was so terrified that he has fled Brampton. And he said that after those shots were fired, the gunman sent a video to his family demanding $500,000 in cash. So this is a serious issue that all political levels are trying to deal with. We did have a chance to hear from Ontario Solicitor General Michael Kerzner. Here's what he had to say this morning.
Extortion, as we know, knows no bounds. It does not discriminate. It alters lives. It is something that has no moral equivalency. And we will fight it very hard wherever it exists. As our criminal network has become more sophisticated, so has our police services.
Again, they're still in camera at this moment, Nathan and Michelle. They will be available to speak to the media in about 45 minutes, and we'll get an update then and have much more on this story on CTV News at 5 and 6. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
We'll look forward to it. Thank you, John. An off-duty York Regional Police officer is one of 2 people injured in a crash on the 400 in Bradford. Police say this crash between a transport truck and a pickup and an SUV happened around 3:45 in the morning. The off-duty officer and another person are in hospital. Their injuries described as non-life-threatening.
You can see the tractor trailer behind me, that flatbed loaded with construction material. Broke down, came to a rest on the right shoulder, partially blocking the right lane. The vehicle was there for a short time when a passenger vehicle approaching in that third lane struck the back of that trailer. rotated into the other travel lanes and was struck again by a second passenger vehicle. The two occupants in those two vehicles both taken to hospital. One of them was serious injuries.
And you can imagine the disruption. The northbound 400 is expected to fully reopen this hour.
Still to come this noon hour, new numbers on bad behavior among air travelers in Canada. We'll break down the biggest issues and the cities that saw the most poorly behaved passengers.
But first, let's take a live look at the forecast. Not looking too bad out there as we take a live look at the city this noon hour. But there is some unsettled weather on tap today and in the days ahead. To bring us up to speed, our Lindsay Morrison joins us now with the current conditions. What are you seeing, Lindsay?
Yeah, Michelle, it's not too bad out there right now. Technically, this is another mild day. We're at 2 degrees this hour, and we're forecasting a high of about 4, but we likely won't get there until the evening hours tonight. 1 degree in Hamilton, 0 in Barrie, and 2 in Niagara Falls. Good afternoon to you. Winds out of the south today or the southwest, depending on where you're joining us from. The winds are pretty light, though. They are going to strengthen a little bit further as the afternoon goes on, and we are noticing those stronger winds already across southwestern Ontario. Now, there's a lot to see here on the satellite and radar. We're specifically watching the GTA for about midway through this afternoon and into the early part of the evening for the possibility of some snow, but maybe some rain mixing in there too. Again, the temperature is going to be quite mild. Forecast daytime high 4 degrees. If you like this kind of warmth, enjoy it while we have it. We have a dramatic cool down on the way for tomorrow night. We'll take you through that part of the weather forecast coming up. But for now, Nathan, going to send it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. We turn now to Iran, where activists say at least 2,000 people have died during protests against the regime. More than 130 of the casualties were government-affiliated. That grim update was provided as Donald Trump called for a continuation of the demonstrations. The U.S. president posted this on Truth Social, saying, "Iranian patriots keep protesting. Take over your institutions. Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price." He added, "I've canceled all meetings with the Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on its way." Trump did not provide details. Meanwhile, for the first time in days, Iranians were allowed to make phone calls abroad via their cell phones, but reports indicate people outside the country could not call them. The government has not eased restrictions on the internet or restored texting services. Authorities cut off all communications in and out of the country late Thursday.
And with that, we take a live look downtown on University Avenue outside the U.S. Consulate. A rally is getting underway this noon hour, organized by members of Toronto's Iranian community, and definitely a large crowd gathered there right now. And in amongst them is our CTV's Rahim Ladhnai, who joins us now with the latest. Rahim.
Hi, Michelle. Yes, this crowd of demonstrators has quickly swelled to several hundreds of people, all of them chanting for down to the Islamic regime, and a lot of them also calling for U.S. President Donald Trump to help. I'm going to take you over here, and I'm going to introduce you to Reza. Reza is over here. Reza, we're live on CTV News Toronto. We're wanting to talk to you because why should people in Toronto who are not Iranian, why should they care about what's happening right now?
Well, I think, in my opinion, and for having been escaped Iran 44 years ago, we all stand together. It not only it will benefit the whole world, regime change in Iran, it will decimate terrorist government of Iran, who's been supporting most terrorist groups in the world. What happens now, people stand together. Many Iranians all over the world, they stand together to support. Many Iranians have been killed for the last 3-4 days. I hear news over 12,000 Iranians have been killed on the street.
2,000 confirmed, but yes, of course, there are certain unconfirmed reports. Do you yourself have any family in Iran, and have you been able to get in touch with them now that some of the restrictions in terms of the phones have eased, still no texting, but do you know how your family is and are they safe?
I have no news from my family. My brother, my sisters live in Iran. I've been trying to reach out to many people that I know. There is no way contacting them, and it's been blacked out since, I believe, January 8th. And this has got to end. People are ready to stand together for the King Reza Pahlavi.
Just one more for you, because we're seeing a lot of signs here with the face of U.S. President Donald Trump. People saying, make Iran great again, calling on President Trump and the United States to help. Do you believe that the president has Iranians' best interests in mind?
Well, I think what President Trump is trying to do to stand with Iranians who have been trying to change the regime for the last 47 years. And this president has been 47th president of the United States. I think the stars are aligned, and I think it's going to definitely happen. And people in Iran listen to President Trump, went on the street in hopes that United States of America will support Iranians once again.
Reza, thank you so much for your time. So as you can see over here, there's a lot of passion and a lot of people pleading for help, not knowing where to turn as they hope for a regime change as they continue this movement. For the people here in Toronto, this is not just a global issue, it's extremely personal. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladhnai. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Rahim. And just across the street from the U.S. Consulate, a bail hearing continues for a man accused of laundering money for alleged drug kingpin and former Olympic snowboarder Ryan Wedding. Roland Sokolovsky is one of several Canadians accused of working with Wedding. Sokolovsky was arrested in the United States, where authorities allege he oversaw the drug ring's books and obtained luxury goods for Wedding. Yesterday, the judge banned the publication of any information that could identify his potential sureties, finding it necessary to reduce their risk of physical harm or death.
Crews were on the scene of a house fire in the Weston and St. Clair area overnight. The call came in just before 3 a.m. Toronto Fire says flames broke out on the second floor of the home. All 4 people in the house were able to get out before crews arrived. Paramedics say one person was taken to hospital with minor injuries. The fire has since been knocked down, and crews are monitoring the scene. 2 people are in hospital following a fire at a vacant lot in Mississauga. Crews responded to the scene on Mattawa Avenue around 4 a.m. Peel paramedics say both people suffered minor injuries. Police have not confirmed if the fire was at an encampment at this point.
From assaulting flight attendants to smoking on board to indecent exposure.
New numbers show Canadian transportation authorities logged more than 100 reports of disruptive air passengers in 2025. Let's bring in CTV's Scott Hurst for a breakdown of this data and how it impacted travelers in Toronto. Scott, more than 100 reports of disruption with air passengers with a wide range of alleged bad behavior.
Michelle, good afternoon. Of course, flying can be stressful, but that does not excuse bad behavior. Let me use a flight from Toronto to Vancouver as an example that I took from the numbers. A pilot executed a missed approach, and according to the data telling air traffic controllers, it was because a passenger on board refused to sit. This is just one of the many examples that can also be considered much more severe and serious. Some of the other bad behaviors that we're talking about that impacted air travel include, as I mentioned, refusing orders to sit during landing, uttering threats, instigating fights on board, attempting to vape marijuana on board, even indecent exposure, just to name a few. These incidents last year caused numerous delays, forcing flights to be diverted or turned back to the gate. In many cases, the offending passengers were arrested or escorted off the plane by police. Some, according to the data, even added to no-fly lists. Now, airlines have zero tolerance for any form of abuse directed at employees or other passengers, and cabin crew do go through extensive training to help de-escalate situations. Now, we should point out the number of disruptive passenger incidents is really, of course, a small number compared to the millions of traveling customers every year, but also union reps for flight attendants tell CTV News disruptive passenger incidents, Michelle, often go unreported or underreported depending on the severity of the incident.
That is interesting. Now, these reports were filed from across the country. What cities had the most reported incidents?
Michelle, of course, no city wants to be on top of the list, and Toronto didn't make the top of the list. list, but coming in second. However, Calgary is leading the way with the most reported incidents in 2025 of disruptive air passengers. Calgary there with 45 reports, followed by Toronto, and then rounding out the top 5, Vancouver, Montreal, and Edmonton. Now, of the 114 disruptive passenger reports in 2025, we should point out that that number is trending downward over the past several years. And Michelle, if you want more information on this, you can go to our website, ctvnews.ca.
Appreciate that. CTV's Scott Hurst live for us in the National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney is heading to China today as Canada looks to expand its pool of international trading partners.
CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver has more on what Carney's hoping to achieve during the visit.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is getting set to depart for a 9-day trip to China, Qatar, and Davos. In all 3 countries, the Prime Minister will be meeting with foreign leaders, business leaders, and CEO, with the focus of expanding bilateral relations, increasing trade, and increasing foreign investment in Canada. Now, the part of this trip that's getting the most focus is his 3 nights in China. This is Prime Minister Mark Carney's first trip to China as Prime Minister, and also the first trip by a Canadian Prime Minister since former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was there in 2017 to try to establish a free trade agreement. That did not happen, and very shortly after, the CEO of Huawei, Meng Wanzhou, was detained in Canada at the request of the United States. That led to China retaliating by detaining 2 Canadians, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavar, who were eventually released. Relations with China have been strained and extremely tense since then, back in 2018. Now, the Prime Minister's office says that Carney and Xi have both agreed it's time to revive that relationship, to try to improve bilateral relations. And that is what this visit to China is all about. It's about trying to bring stability back to this relationship, to try to bring it back to where it was before 2018. Now, speaking on background, officials do say they expect to see some progress on tariffs, but they don't expect to see tariffs removed entirely. Right now, China has a 100% tariff on canola oil and strong tariffs on other agricultural products that are really threatening the industry. So again, officials are saying they do expect to see some progress on those tariffs, but they don't expect to see them removed completely. Of course, anything can change. Now, while in China, the Prime Minister will meet with Xi Jinping. He'll meet with the Premier. He will also meet with business leaders and CEOs. Again, the main focus here is trade, trying to get rid of these tariffs, trying to improve the bilateral relationship. However, there will also be other topics brought up. For example, they say agriculture, energy, very important issues. We expect to see some type of conversation around autos and EVs. This is what experts say they expect to bring up as part of that tariff discussion, and as well just trade in general. Now, the Prime Minister's office and officials speaking on background have said that they do expect the Prime Minister to make it very clear to the Chinese government and to Xi Jinping that Canada wants to increase business and trade with China. However, there are certain guardrails that they want to put up in place. For example, they don't want to do business in artificial intelligence or critical minerals. Now, again, this is a 9-day trip. The first stop will be China, then he'll go to Qatar, and then to Davos in Switzerland for the World Economic Forum. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Ottawa.
Russia launched a second major drone and missile attack on Ukraine in 4 days, striking several cities. One attack in the northeastern Kharkiv region killed 4 people. Elsewhere, several 100,000 households were without power in the Kyiv region. Ukrainian officials say the strikes focused on the power grid amid freezing temperatures. The capital has grappled with severe electricity shortages for days, but the mayor says last night's strikes caused the biggest power outage the city has faced so far.
Greenland's prime minister said today his country chooses Denmark over the United States. Jens Frederik Nielsen met with his Danish counterpart in Copenhagen, saying Greenland does not want to be owned or controlled by the U.S. and repeated that his country is not for sale. The PM added Greenland has faith in NATO and suggested there is much evidence that the hardest part now lies ahead with regard to the American interest in Greenland. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance will host a meeting with his Greenlandic counterpart in Washington tomorrow. A bipartisan U.S. congressional delegation is headed to Copenhagen later this week to show unity with Denmark.
In Hawaii, one of the world's most active volcanoes is showing no sign of calming down. Lava is continuing to flow inside the crater of the Kilauea volcano. A tall pillar could be seen spouting up yesterday. It's located at Hawaii's Volcanoes National Park on the Big Island. Kilauea has been erupting on and off since December 23rd, 2024.
Well, we're heading into a little bit of an unusual temperature pattern here. Usually at night, we cool down significantly, but tonight, first in the evening hours, we're going to warm up, and then overnight tonight, we will be warmer than we are right now. 3 degrees is the temperature we are expecting. Normal overnight low this time of year, -10. Now, there is a bit of active weather expected over the next couple of days. Scattered flurries through tomorrow, lake effect bands into Thursday. And then we're already keeping an eye on Friday for the possibility of periods of snow. We'll talk about this and again, the dramatic cool down on the way. That's after this break. You're watching CTV News at noon. We'll be right back.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
All right, let's talk about the forecast. No major snowfall or anything. It's kind of comfortable out there, I guess.
I think when you're in the plus territory temperature-wise, it feels really nice, but that's not going to stay forever. And then we have some, potentially rain or snow in the mix.
Yeah, so this afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from or what time your afternoon drive is, you might encounter maybe a little bit of drizzle, a little bit of rain, maybe a little bit of snow. Everything is possible with the temperatures that we're experiencing today. Above freezing, above seasonal once again, and we'll be through the night tonight, but then things change pretty dramatically about this time tomorrow. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. Before we talk about the cold, let's talk about the snow, and some parts of Ontario still digging out from what has been a very snowy winter already. Specifically, I want to talk about the Orillia area, where there has been already more than 300 centimeters of snow so far this winter. Last year, Orillia had an astonishing amount of snow, close to 500 centimeters of snow, and at this point, the city looks to be on pace for something similar. Also want to talk about this home in Oro-Medonte. The roof caved in as a result of very heavy snow on top. So this is just a reminder. This is mainly outside of the GTA, but take care in areas that have seen significant snow because there is more on the way. Let's begin with a look at the temperature story across our province. Right now it is 0 degrees in Muskoka. It's 1 in Wyerton. Nice and mild right now in Trenton at 3 degrees. And even Ottawa, 2 degrees is pretty mild for you this time of year. For us here in Toronto, our average daytime high is -2 degrees. We're going to be closer to that by the end of the work and school week. But ahead of that, we're going to be a little mild, and then we're going to be dramatically cooler. 4 is today's forecast daytime high. Interestingly enough, though, it's not so much a daytime high tonight as it is an evening high. The sun will have set by the time we are around 4 degrees. And then overnight, temperature holds steady at roughly 3. Some drizzle in the forecast, maybe a few flurries. The flurries are a little more likely into tomorrow as the temperature cools. So we're going to go from about 2 degrees tomorrow morning to -12 overnight and into Thursday. So that's a big change, and it's not just us here in Ontario. It's looking like January is going to settle back in across Manitoba, Ontario, and Quebec, not just later this week, but into the early part of next week, too. Here's the satellite and radar. Depending on where you're joining us from, you may already be getting some snow, maybe a little bit of rain mixing in, seeing some pinks on the radar, too. Can't rule out the possibility of some mixing today. This is a disturbance that swings through, and behind it, more in the way of flurry activity possible for your Wednesday. And then by Thursday, we're seeing the lake effect machine fire back up, and a few squalls or bands are likely to form. So there's tomorrow morning after our round of precip today. There's Thursday. You can see those bands starting to form, especially off Lake Huron. And then just an early heads up that right now it looks like we could be in for a few periods of snow into the day on Friday. The measurable snow, once again, is mainly going to be outside of the GTA. Look at Huntsville, Owen Sound, and Goderich specifically over the next few here. 7-day forecast. This looks pretty snowy, though. Most days filled with cloud cover. Most days bringing us flurries or snow. Thursday's high only -8 degrees. Bundle up for that. We are closer to seasonal for Friday, and then Saturday's not bad with a daytime high of 0, but much colder again into next week. That's the weather for now. Michelle, over to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. There's a new exhibit honoring women who transformed Toronto.
Called Extension of the 52. It's a presentation exploring the lives of 52 women from Toronto's cultural, scientific, political, and athletic communities. CTV Jessica Smith is live this noon hour with a preview, and this seems to encompass quite a bit, Jess.
It really does, Nathan and Michelle, and there are so many iconic faces and names, and then a lot that maybe people don't know but are very much a part of Toronto's history and have helped shape the city that we know and love today. I'm going to bring in Heidi from the Museum of Toronto. Why bring something like this to the city? Because I feel like, again, there are faces I for sure recognize. There are some iconic pieces in here, but there's a lot of names I don't know, and I feel like we should.
Well, of course, Toronto, 52% of the population of Toronto are women, and those women have shaped our city in an extraordinary way. And we have set out to actually earmark the changemakers, the trailblazers, and the leaders, whether they be incredibly well known or a little bit, I guess, quieter and more everyday. And that's what we've done. We've set out to identify the women who are the first of many things in our city.
And there are so many cool pieces in here. It's very interactive. You can come and, move things. There's videos. Why have this kind of multidisciplinary display? Because I feel like it brings a different element for people coming through, whether you have young students or you're coming in with your family or just by yourself.
Museum of Toronto is really dedicated to creating a city museum, one we do not have in Toronto like major cities in the world. And one of our philosophies is to really ensure that everyone feels included, whether it be the people who are curating our shows or the visitors to our show. So we really focus on what is called interdisciplinarity, which is everything from traditional labels to maybe traditional objects, but also inviting our visitors to play with us and contribute to the exhibition.
Now, walking through, we have the tutu from Karen Kane. I see some items from, Hurricane Hazel in here, some really, really cool pieces, but there are some maybe lesser known names. The first black nurse, for example. Yes. Can you talk to me about her story just a little bit, very briefly?
So Bernice Redmond, who is the first black nurse, actually was born in Toronto and wanted to be a nurse, but couldn't find schooling in our country for 72 years. Actually, the nursing system in our country did not allow women in.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, Ms. Heidi. We're going to have more on the story tonight. We'll have more. We're going to send things back into the studio. We'll have more on this tonight at 5 and 6.
All right, thank you, Jess. Appreciate that. Coming up, she traveled to Costa Rica for cosmetic surgery and nearly died. An Ontario woman is now warning others after a horrific ordeal left her with permanent, life-altering injuries. Her story when we return. The Premier is speaking to reporters at Queen's Park this hour. He's joined by 3 state representatives from the Michigan legislature right now, talking about the relationship between the U.S. and Ontario. Let's listen into what Doug Ford has to say.
I'll open it up to questions.
Premier, did you talk about the tariffs that, not the tariffs between the United States and Canada, the other tariffs with China, the 100% EV tariff? Prime Minister Carney is headed to Beijing. It sounds like he's in discussions with the Chinese government about lowering that tariff in exchange for, canola concessions and other things. Are you worried about that?
I'm very concerned, and so are my friends in Michigan concerned. When you have China coming in at a low cost of EVs is concerning. We as everyone knows, those parts go back and forth between Ontario and Michigan 7-8 times and get assembled in Michigan or get assembled here in Ontario. And when you have the Chinese government wanting to dump cheap Chinese parts and cheap vehicles here, it cost the Canadian and American jobs. So I'm absolutely 100% dead against this. I have not talked to the Prime Minister. I will speak to him and tell him our concerns. And this is nothing against the folks in the canola business or soybean. We have a thriving soybean business here too. So it's not about them. I fully understand why Premier Moe is concerned, but he's protecting Saskatchewan. I'm protecting Ontario. The 500,000 jobs in the auto sector, that's what I'm focused on. And it works back and forth between Michigan and Ontario and many other states. So it would not be good for Ontario and Canada, and it sure the heck wouldn't be good for for the U.S., and it wouldn't be good when it comes to negotiating with President Trump.
But you said the other day, though, that if the Chinese automakers came in and invested in a plant, hired Ontarians, made products here, you'd be open to that.
There's a difference there. You can't just dump cheap vehicles here. If you want to open up a plant, and I'm not speaking to for our American friends or for the president, but if they're willing to come here, invest in a plant, just like GM, Stellantis, Ford, Volkswagen, Honda, Toyota, and come here and manufacture and create jobs and create parts here, well, now we're on a whole different page. But if you want to just come here and dump vehicles that will hurt Americans and Canadian jobs, in my opinion, it's unacceptable.
But you haven't discussed this with Prime Minister Carney at all?
Oh, he knows how I feel very clearly. I'll be reaching out to him, and we're going to meet up in Ottawa with a COF meeting. So I'll express.
He's in China now, though.
I will reach out to him, and I'll text message him, and just tell him our concerns.
You've said many times doing what you're describing. Any Chinese companies who would invest in Ontario like that?
Well, we'll have to see. I'm going to sit down with the Prime Minister when he gets back, find out what the conversation is, and we'll go from there.
Remember, you said many times that there are.
The fact that Scott Moe's going to China with the Prime Minister, isn't that a pretty strong signal from the Prime Minister that he's looking to back down on EV tariffs in order to save another Canadian economy?
Well, Scott's one of my closest allies, and he's going there to protect jobs and canola jobs in Saskatchewan, as he should. I'm doing my job as Premier of Ontario to protect jobs here. So wouldn't it be great if we could protect all the jobs? But let's see what happens when they come back, and we'll have a conversation with both of them.
Speaking of other premiers,
yes.
Rob Canoe is actually going to visit the Crown Royal Distillery facility today in support of what they're doing there. Have you spoken with him? Do you know what he's thinking at this point? And
I talk to Rob frequently. I just got off the phone with him probably an hour ago. He did tell me he's going up to the Crown Oil plant, and I told him, God bless him, he's doing his job. He's trying to protect jobs in Manitoba. I'm protecting jobs here in Ontario, and he respects that. I respect him. We have a phenomenal relationship. He invited me over to the Jets and Maple Leafs game that's happening. By the way, he owes me probably a dinner at McDonald's because I won the last bet, and he wants me to come there and go to a game with him. But he's a fine gentleman, I'll tell you that.
Are you still planning on taking Crown Royal off the shelves?
As sure as I'm talking to you, that Crown Royal is coming off the shelves.
Premier said many times.
All right, you're listening to a live news conference. Premier Ford expressing concern as Prime Minister Carney heads to China. There are reports Carney might talk about easing tariffs on Chinese EVs in exchange for canola relief. As you know, there are 100% tariffs on EVs imported from China, but the Premier there definitely concerned if we were to ease up on that in any way, what it would mean for Ontario's auto sector and the 500,000 jobs as well. And the relationship between the U.S. We'll stay on top of that, but we'll move on now to some other news.
All right, medical tourism is a $100 billion industry worldwide, and more Canadians looking to reduce wait times and costs are jumping on the bandwagon.
But what happens when things don't go smoothly? Tonight, in part one of a three-part series, this afternoon, health reporter Pauline Chan looks at how one woman's desire for cosmetic changes left her fighting for her life in a foreign country.
She was a 52-year-old business owner and mother of 4 who also had abdominal surgery to remove a massive tumor.
My dream was to have a mummy makeover.
A tummy tuck and breast lift. But after her medical excursion to Costa Rica last fall, Nicole Grigorov is facing a very different future from what she expected for the new year.
So I have to learn how to walk. I had to learn how to use my arms. I have to learn how to do everything.
Sepsis resulted in the loss of her fingers and toes. But Nicole was just one of the thousands of Canadians who went overseas last year for medical or cosmetic surgery. The U.S.-based Medical Tourism Association says there's been a 40% jump last year in Canadians going abroad for anything from faster hip replacements to nose jobs.
It's estimated that it's 432,000.
And that's, data we have from hospitals, governments in some of the destination countries.
I just went online and did a ton of research. So I interviewed some doctors in Canada. Canada wasn't out of the question.
But in the end, she chose a clinic in Costa Rica.
The main driving factor is the cost. The cost of care in those countries is considerably lower. The overhead expense, the time in an operating room, the medications cost less there.
The cost for Costa Rica, about $20,000 plus flights.
So in Canada, it would have probably been 25% more.
But Nicole doesn't recall waking up at the clinic where her surgery was done. Nicole Grigorov spent some 3 weeks in a coma in Costa Rica. Her organs shut down, and when she finally awoke, her next challenge was trying to get back to Canada. Close friend Rod Ponkin stepped in with $85,000 for an air ambulance, and that wasn't the only hurdle.
There's a lot of moving parts because the air ambulance, the doctor and their team had to correspond with Niagara doctors, and they had to consult.
It was a 2-week wait to secure a hospital bed, with Nicole paying for each day in the Costa Rican hospital. She arrived in Niagara just before Halloween, and a couple of weeks later, she had to have all her fingers and toes amputated.
I just want my life back. I want peace in my life.
In our next report, we hear from medical experts
and switch
about how medical tourism is a growing industry and what to be aware of. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Still to come, a new survey finds many Canadians are feeling financial pressures when it comes to housing, groceries, and other day-to-day expenses. We'll have the details just ahead. Many credit card bills are now coming in following the holiday shopping season, and they're arriving at a time when many Canadians are feeling anxious about the economy.
A new survey finds many consumers feel the year ahead will be challenging when it comes to paying bills and keeping up with household expenses. CTV's Pat Foran has a consumer alert.
If you're feeling stressed about your finances, you're not alone. Many people are concerned about the rising cost of living heading into the new year.
The salary is not sufficient to cover the basic necessity now.
I'm barely paycheck to paycheck for years. Not a good place to be, but I think it's pretty common.
According to the MNP Canadian Consumer Debt Survey, 71% expect the cost of living to worsen, 59% believe the overall economy will worsen, and 51% believe Canada's relationship with the U.S. will also get worse.
There's a lot of negativity and pessimism out there.
Whether it's paying your rent or mortgage, shopping for a new car, or buying groceries, the year ahead brings with it mounting financial challenges. For many, it's not one part of the economy, it's all of it.
Whether it's interest and inflation, housing, job market, overall economy, the cost of goods.
The Credit Counseling Society says one area of growing concern is consumers using credit cards to buy groceries and pay their monthly bills.
We're seeing more and more people that are using their credit to cover off those little necessities in life. And the problem is that's a bad cycle to be in. At some point, you run out of credit and you don't have cash. What do you do?
The survey also found 59% believe housing affordability will deteriorate, and 62% are concerned about rising poverty and inequality. Younger Canadians are feeling the most financial pressure.
Many of them have just left school. They have this large student loan debt. They've accumulated credit card debt. They're looking at the cost of housing as they start their financial journey into adulthood, and they do feel stuck.
Anyone having trouble paying their bills and getting further into debt is advised to get help. Credit counseling with a debt professional is free, confidential, and can let you know your options before your situation gets worse. Pat Foran, CTV News.
McDonald's Canada has announced it is dropping the price of its McValue meals and freezing the price of a small coffee for at least a year. A McValue meal will now cost just $5, and the price of a small coffee will remain at $1. This promise comes as public perception around dining out has shifted in recent years, with more people than ever being cost conscious and willing to go whenever they provide and willing to go wherever will provide them the best value. Other fast food industry players like Tim Hortons and Wendy's have both sold meal deals in Canada, and Burger King has also marketed small combos similar to McDonald's McValue menu in Canada.
A group of international central bank chairs, including Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem, have issued a statement showing their solidarity with U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. The statement says the independence of central banks is a cornerstone of price, financial, and economic stability, adding is critical to preserve that independence with full respect for the rule of law and democratic accountability. The Trump administration has threatened Powell with a criminal indictment over testimony he gave before Congress regarding renovations at the Federal Reserve's headquarters.
Autism advocates are celebrating the release of the first ever Barbie on the spectrum. The new doll is part of Mattel's Fashionistas collection, which includes dolls with a diverse range of skin tones, hair textures, body types, and health conditions, including type 1 diabetes, Down syndrome, and blindness. The new Barbie doll has a gaze that shifts slightly to the side, reflecting how some people with autism avoid direct eye contact. She wears pink noise-canceling headphones to reduce sensory overload and holds a pink tablet that represents her augmentative and alternative communication device. Her purple pinstripe dress is purposefully flowy, loose-fitting, and short-sleeved, a nod to how some people with autism prefer to keep fabric from touching their skin as much as possible.
The Raptors were in action last night, looking for their second win in as many days over the Philadelphia 76ers.
And Colin Murray boils with it. Scotty Barnes, there you go.
The Raps had their moments, but it wasn't enough, trailing by 30 in the first half. They ended up losing 115-102. The highlight of the night, former Raptor Kyle Lowry taking the court in what might have been his final game in Toronto.
A standing ovation for the greatest Raptor of all time.
The longtime Raptor, who was a key piece of Toronto's 2019 NBA championship run, entered the game late in the fourth quarter. Lowry has said when he does call it a career, he plans to sign a one-day contract so he can retire as a Raptor.
A huge road win for the Leafs last night as they beat the best team in the NHL.
Breaking, he's got Nylander on the wing, a shot, scores! Holy mackerel! The Leafs win it in overtime!
William Nylander scored with 61 seconds left in OT to beat the Colorado Avalanche 4-3. Easton Cowan, Bobby McMann, and Austin Matthews also scored for the Leafs, who won their fourth in a row. This win snapped Colorado's 17 home game win streak. Toronto will take on the Mammoth in Salt Lake City tonight. And just ahead, a touching tribute. We mentioned Bobby McMann earlier. Well, he recognized the lifelong Leafs fan who recently passed away by sporting his vest before the game over the weekend. The story behind their friendship in moments. There is a large memorial inside a downtown grocery store for a staff member named Kevin Wilson, who died recently.
Wilson was known by shoppers to be a massive fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and this weekend, his favorite player paid tribute to Kevin in a very special way. CTV's Sean Leathong has the story.
Honoring a person who connected a community, Leafs center Bobby McMann wearing a safety vest as he arrived at Scotiabank Arena Saturday night. The vest belonged to a lifelong Leafs fan who died tragically just days earlier.
Kevin Wilson. He's a cart guy at Loblaws that I would go to all the time.
48-year-old Wilson was in charge of shopping carts inside the Loblaws at Lakeshore and Bathurst downtown. But he specialized in kindness and connection with nearly everyone who walked through the door.
Just a really good spirit, really good person. Affected a lot of people positively, I think, when they walked into that place.
Inside his place of work, customers are placing flowers, notes, and Maple Leafs memorabilia, as many describe Wilson the same way.
Every time somebody came in, he made their day.
He spoke to probably every customer that came up the escalator, including children in strollers.
He was always smiling from year to year.
He had charisma. He had a kind of personality that was outgoing, and you could see the goodness within him.
Wilson died suddenly in hospital on January 8th. The cause has not been made public. He'd been working at Loblaws for 5 years, and in that time became a fixture with both customers and co-workers.
I have no words because I'm so heartbroken. Like, it devastates me. And I don't think he even realizes how much people loved him.
Making every day a little brighter with a little connection, especially with those who love the Leafs.
You give me a fist bump, talk Leafs. Literally every time.
This man, my boy Kevin, might have been legitimately the biggest, most diehard fan in Leaf Nation.
That includes Frank Krupe, known online as Hockey Illuminati, who dedicated a post to Wilson last week.
But his favorite Leaf was Bobby McMann, who would also pop in to the Loblaws every now and then. He got a photo with him one time. He was so excited to show it to me.
McMann asked the store if he could borrow one of Kevin's vests and a name tag.
Always had positive things to say, so I just wanted to honor him.
A GoFundMe page to cover funeral costs has already exceeded $20,000. And though he may never know how far his kindness reached, now many more know who Kevin Wilson was. A man who made a community through kindness. Sean Leathong, CTV News.
It's a touching story, isn't it?
Yeah, imagine what Kevin would say, knowing that he's the talk of Leafs Nation. That's just a lovely story. Weather-wise, there's a bit of sun this hour.
Yeah, and you know what? We'll take it because there's also a little bit of active weather on the way. One more look at the satellite and radar is going to show us this possibility of perhaps a little bit of rain, maybe a little bit of snow just in time for the afternoon drive. So a heads up on that. A reminder that, things are going to warm up this evening before they cool down tomorrow. We reach our daytime high of 4 degrees in the evening hours tonight. And then the temperature goes from 2 degrees tomorrow morning to -12 overnight. There's the 7-day forecast. Nathan and Michelle.
Thank you, Lindsay. And that's it for CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6.